One of the basic points of Tantra is the question of a ground in which the student and teacher is working together. And I would like to backtrack a little bit in terms of reviewing the whole thing properly. I think that particular approach also applies to the Kriya Yoga Tantra we discussed in previously last time, that some kind of working basis in which that student and teacher could work together and relate together. The question is very clear, unlike that of the Hinayana situation or the Mahayana situation. In the Hinayana situation, that there is the sense of wise men giving you instruction constantly and guiding you precisely, very clean-cut kind of relationship takes place. And in the case of Mahayana, that we have the notion of Kalyana Mitra, a spiritual friend who works with you, who relates with you in terms of friendship, in terms of guiding through the dangerous paths and luxurious paths, and when to relax, when to exert into the path, following through the disciplines of 6 paramitas. There seems to be a general process. In the case of Vajrayana, the role of teacher and student concerned, it's very vigorous and highly meaningful. It is more than that you are consulting a wise sage, or for that matter it is you are consulting spiritual friend, but it becomes much more personal, much more, if you like to use the word, magical from that sense. That the teacher in the Vajrayana tradition is referred as a Vajra master. That's the term that's used. And this particular Vajra master is capable of transmitting the Vajra spiritual energy to you. At the same time, this particular master is capable of destroying you if your direction's gone wrong. That's one of the bases of a tantric discipline. In order to create the continuity that we'll be discussing, that the continuity can only take place if there is something to continue. If there's nothing to continue particularly, or the channel or the vessel to continue is non-existent, that continuation could be cancelled. We are not purely talking in terms of theistic style of having a deity, external being, who will save you and give you whatever you need. But we are talking in terms of that the student of Tantra should be in a constant state of panic. Therefore, it is regarded as electric, regarded as worthwhile. Such a state of panic in the student's situation, the student of Tantra is concerned, that panic serves two purposes: to overcome one's own self-snugness, and it sharpens one's enormous clarity. It is been said by Pema Katpo and other great teachers of Tantric authorities that studying Tantra is like riding on a razor blade. Should you try to slide down, or should you try to stay on it and hold and freeze yourself? At the same time, when you know how to slide down on the razor blade, as you might do as you're a child, and slide down to your banister and the staircase, if you know the nature of the blade, you can do so. Whereas if you do not know the nature of the blade, and you are just trying to prove your chauvinism, and you might find yourself in half and half. More warnings about Tantra has been made, and that much the student of Tantra gets a benefit out of this. When Tantric master doesn't make enough warnings, doesn't tell you enough of that the student becomes a bad Tantric student. Because the student is not riding on a blade of razor edge. The student finds fascinating facts and figures, excitement stories, and the possibilities of the sudden path will become extremely seductive and appealing. And particularly it is coincided with the materialistic world of automation, that if you ask a person, would you like to climb up the steps, or would you like to ride an elevator? And most of the people who have no experience with working hard would say that I would like to ride up an elevator. And that has been the point. In fact, that has been the problem. The Tantric approach is supposedly the sudden journey, the quick path that students would think there's no reason why we should waste our time, and we should get our money's worth, so to speak, and quickly become a Buddha. Because we are impatient. Not only that, because we are so coward that you don't want to face the pain and the problems, that we want to get quick results. And that has been the problem, that students have very little exposure or openness to facing all these successive panics that we were talking about. And panics are a source of openness, and the panics are a source of questions. Panics are a source of open heart, open ground. When you suddenly panic, usually what happens to you is you create air, fresh air. We create enormous fresh air. And that is what tantric tradition is supposed to do to you. If you're a good tantric student, you open yourself each moment, each time. You panic 1,000 times a day, 108 times an hour. That you open constantly, you panic constantly. And the panic, nature of the panic at this point is the seriousness of that thing that we're getting into is so overwhelmingly powerful and overwhelmingly demanding that better not connect or commit yourself to a tantric path. If you must, you should take it seriously, absolutely seriously. It is possible that you could develop, following the tantric path, into a Vajra indestructibility and sudden realization of enlightenment. But equally, it is possible you could develop a wrong type of indestructibility, and you find yourself roasted inside out. As if a bad cooked steak in the oven. Find yourself a little charcoal piece. So there's obviously two different approaches: becoming a Vajra nature, inherent Vajra nature, or becoming a piece of charcoal. And also, there is a price on the head of the teachers as well. Those masters and teachers of Tantra who taught students wrong time, choosing the wrong moment, saying the wrong thing, not actually able to experience the happenings that are taking place constantly, that such masters will be condemned. They too could be reduced into a piece of charcoal. And it is called the sin of Sangdrok, which means declaring the secretness in the wrong time. And in fact, that's into the security that has been set up already, that if teachers feels they're out of the law, so to speak, of the binding factors of committing themselves into the practice, they too also can be punished, as well as students get burnt at the same time. So because of those bases that in the past we find ourselves that great teachers of tantric lineage, that uninterrupting tantric traditions that we have developed up to the present level, every one of them, teacher panicked and students panicked at the same time. Because of that healthy situation of a panic, that tantric lineage has went beautifully, smoothly, healthily, exotically. And nobody had made mistake. If anybody had made mistake, they just vanished into charcoal. So those who survive as play the role of a student or teachers are those who are developed Vajra nature. And they survived. You might ask, Coach, what is this famous secret? What were you talking about? What is it all about? This notion of sacredness that we are talking about is not particularly exotic, anything particularly special, but we are simply talking about playing with the cosmos, playing with the energy of the universe. That you know in your childhood that if you touch naked wire, you get shocked. We know that much, playing with the universe and playing with the cosmos. If you speed your motor car, you get crushed. And we know that much. And we are talking about a spiritual equivalent of that, which is doubly 100 times worse or powerful, if you like to put it that way. So we are talking about such energy exists in the world, we begin to have a glimpse of that energy, and we get completely fascinated by that, and then we begin to play with it, and you're asking for trouble. Obviously, any sensible person would say that. Has been said already hundreds of times. Don't get into Tantra just like that. Start from the Hinayana and get graduated into the Mahayana. Then you can become Tantric practitioners if you have done your homework, your basic trainings already. At the end, you could become Tantric practitioner. But it is dangerous. It has been said many times, hundreds of times. Every book that written on the Tantra begins with that warning all the time. Every commentaries, every Tantras that be recorded in history of our cosmos, that there are something like 2,500 volumes of Tantric textbooks, and there are double of that number of commentaries on such textbooks. Every one of them begins with a warning. Be careful. think twice. Pay respect. Don't just take it like that. Be careful. And one of the interesting points about Tantra is the more you put students off, that much they become so interested in. The energy and the power that exist in introducing the tantric world, which is not particularly different than our world, not particularly. We are not talking about it that you'll be suddenly woken up into a magical world as such particularly, but we are talking about certain exposure, certain sensitivity that would expose ourselves into a certain state of being. Often people who took LSD claim that they had tantric experience, or people who have been extremely involved in certain psychological depression or excitement claim that they've seen tantric world. And those medias are somewhat suspicious and uncertain. But however, that when we talk about the tantric world, we are talking about this visual, audio, sensorial world. Hasn't been explored, hasn't been looked at properly. Nobody has actually bothered to be interested enough in the world, experiencing it. And people just took grant. Maybe you have done so when you were a little child. In your infancy, you probably have done so. But then you've been told how to handle your world by your parents, and they have already developed their own systems, how to shield yourself from the world at the same time. So we lost the contact at that level. We lost our infancy for a long time ago. And now we find ourselves, the world is full of all kinds of stuff, things. But still we find in order to communicate with the world, we can't really communicate with the world. We find ourselves somewhat numb. There's some kind of numbness in your sight, numbness in your hearing, numbness in your sensorial world of all kinds, that we have been drugged somewhat somewhere, that the reality of the world, the brilliance of red, the brightness of the turquoise, and the majesticness of the yellow, and the fantasticness of the green hasn't been really seen properly, that we have been somewhere indoctrinated, or indoctrinated by ourselves, or our reference point with others, or whatever, that we begin to develop some kind of state of numbness has developed, that we haven't really seen our world properly. We haven't heard our sound properly. We haven't seen our world properly. The point of a Tantra at this point is that to reintroduce, having developed a state of calmness of mind already in your meditation practices, shamatha, shunyata, whatever have you, then you begin to review the world. You rediscover that the world exists around you. You begin to find this world is fabulous and fantastic. And there's all kinds of exciting things happens. Even those people who work for 9-to-5 jobs still find their life, their everyday life situation becomes fantastic. That every day is a different day, rather than the same old stuff, which isn't in fact true, that you can't repeat your day, otherwise you will live longer. So the tantric approach to relating with the world is resharpening, reopening ourselves that we are able to perceive our cosmos properly, thoroughly, fully, and fascinatingly. Now, that sounds great and fantastic. An enormous entertainment, eh? But that comes with a catch. There's the magic, there's the electric. Once we are fascinated by this world, naked world without filter, screen, that is, you're relating to the world without your skin on your body. And experience becomes so intimate, so personal, that it actually burns you directly, or actually makes you cold directly. That it's not so much that the world is becoming open to you, but you shed your skins down as well at the same time. So you become extremely sensitive and jumpy person at the same time. That it is possible you panic more, that you react more. That seems to be one of the basic points of the world that we are talking about. And at the same time, there's possibilities that you can kill yourself, cut your throat. If you get in the brightness of the red, you'll be so much involved in the redness, it could become poisonous because it's so magical, it gives a direct shock. And there's that possibility as well at the same time. So after all, it is not all that entertaining. You just sit back in your chair in the theater, you just watch the fabulous world happening on the screen. It doesn't work that way. It works mutually at the same time. So therefore, Tantra is very dangerous, at the same time electric, at the same time extremely naked, that you don't have room or place put your suit of armor. There's no time for it. It's too immediate. Even suit of armor cuts through from your hand as well as from that hand. At the same time, it dissolves. So that seems to be one of the points of Tantra at this point, is that such nakedness and such openness to review the cosmos in a very entirely different way, but at the same time, it's very dangerously. And moreover, that the third element that involved with that, you and the world, third element involved with the Vajra master, the teacher, who talks to you, who introduces such possibilities of two worlds. And the teacher also had some electricness as well. The teacher is also naked. The third element, who holds the electric thunderbolt symbol in his hand, which is called Dorji, Vajra, has a third conductor of lightning in the teacher's hand, that if the cosmos and you don't click together, the teacher could reignite the shock at the same time. So the teacher has a lot of power in that sense. Not power over you, so the teacher could become such a egomaniac and a powerful person over you or the cosmos, but teacher as being spokesman who introduced the world to you, your world to your world. And it becomes extremely powerful and somewhat very dangerous at that point. And this teacher doesn't just play tricks on you whenever there's weakness point, but teacher, this particular Vajra master, conducted his procedures according to the tradition and discipline, that he touches on you, and he smells on you, he looks at you, he listens to your heartbeat, and he feels you. it's a very definite, deliberate process that's been said to be done according to the traditions. That each one of those processes, when he looks at you, when he hears about you, when he feels you, when he touches you, that those processes are what's known as abhishekas, or the initiations, popularly known, which is actually a wrong translation. That abhisheka is a Sanskrit word which means anointment. You are bathed in holy water that's created by the teacher and the mandala round teacher. He bathes you, sprinkles water over your head. You are finally accepted, but it is different from initiations, which gives tribal setup, that you are accepted as a part of a member of the tribe if you pass through a certain kind of a test. But this case is entirely different, that he empowers you, that you have the power, depends on your capability, and teacher has the power, depends on his capability at the same time. So the word or term empowerment is more important, more appropriate, rather than initiations. Because there's no tribe here to be initiated into. This is not particularly close in the circle of anything. This is, you are introduced into the universe. So you can't say universe is a big tribe. That's big ego. So we are talking about universe is the open space where a teacher empowers you that you can go back to your enlarged universe, the cosmos, the solar system, or the whatever, heavier, all those things. The point of the teacher this way is the teacher acts as the conductor of lightning. And the teacher has the authority and the power to take down your light conductor on your roof. And the teacher has the also power to create thunderstorms so that you could be shocked, devastated, or you could be saved by putting light conductor on your roof at the same time. And using my Tibetan mountain analogies, that seemed to be the closest to it. And it is necessary to have a teacher and to trust it on the teacher. The teacher is the only embodiment in this particular transmission of energy, that without such teacher that you can't actually experience anything properly, thoroughly and fully by reading books on Tantra or trying to do them manually in your cabin. Somehow it doesn't work because there is a real experience should take place. The things be transmitted, the priestcraft, if you like to call it, or whatever you like to call it, that particular system of working, that particular energy is being presented, handed down, had to become real and obvious and precise at this point. And that seems to be one of the important things of the dangers of Tantra, is that the people cannot enter into even Tantra at all without having made some connections with your teacher, the Vajra master, indestructible teacher. And that person can't be a cosmic figure. And that person had to be somebody who actually done himself the same trip throughout the whole thing, that he was a panicking student and he was also panicking teacher at the same time. That the person has to go through the same process. Otherwise the Dharma cannot be transmitted from the sun or the moon or the stars. The Dharma can only be transmitted from human to human, properly, thoroughly and fully. And that seems to be the basic point of need for Vajra Master, who has lots of power not of you alone, power of the cosmos and himself, who is also being warned if he misdirected his direction, he's also been cut down as well, reducing the charcoal, little stake. So that seemed to be the point of importance of master, importance of personal experience as regard to your pain, regard to your pleasure, and also importance of the fearfulness and respectableness at the same time that you are connecting, you're communicating to Tantra at the same time, which is a very special thing, extremely special, that it is very difficult to find two tantric situations and a meeting with the two tantric master and becoming two tantric student at the same time is very difficult, very hard to find the real thing, so to speak. And therefore, the whole thing becomes very unusual, strange. And one of the interesting point about Tantra is that because that tantric situation does not yield to any other situations, it's a self-existing situation. At the same time, it yields enormously with the cosmic structures that exist around us. It's a double binding situation at the same time. If you'd like to have any questions, you're welcome.
Rinpoche, what did you mean when you said that the tantric master has the ability to take the life of the student?
Can you say that again?
What did you mean when you said...
Raise your hand. Yeah. What did I say?
You said the tantric master had the ability to take the life of his student. Did you mean that literally, that he would snuff him out?
What did he say?
Snuff him out like a candle flame is snuffed out.
Hi.
I see. You just don't acknowledge his existence, and he doesn't exist anymore.
Are you worried about that?
It does make me a little nervous.
Well, let's leave it that way. Gentleman with the glasses and grey hair.
Rinpoche, the account you gave brought back to me a period of my life when I was 9 years old and I had a terrible fever, and as a result of it was apparently psychotic for something like 3 or 4 weeks. And I remember the enormous impact upon me that colors had, sound, and touch. It was absolutely unbearable when my mother brought me a bouquet of white flowers. The power of this color was absolutely unbearable, and I screamed. There seemed to be all filters gone, and all this, the color and the sound and the touch, seemed to impinge directly on me, and I could not bear it. Now, the experience you talk about in Tantra seems not to be very far removed from that. And perhaps the teaching is to deal with this experience without becoming psychotic.
You are quite right, sir, that when people are extraordinarily fascinated by corners of reality of all kinds, it could be a color, it could be a sound, or it could be some kind of experience, connections, or some kind of things that people find, the other people find, so to speak, the others find that that person is very eccentric, on the verge of nervous breakdown or being psychotic because of behaving very strange. And at that point, the interesting shift takes place. Is in fact, these other people who panic turns into psychotic. And not you, who are very keenly interested in the world, and the cosmos, and the makings of the universe. There's always interest that there's red light as you drive, then turns into amber, and then turns into red, turns into green rather. It's fantastic. And there is a world of message and a world of symbolism is self-existing situation. And I think we're talking about that kind of area, that kind of situations, that how everybody here come up with their colors on their clothes. Some people decide to wear a shirt, some people decide to not wear a shirt. But everybody wears the bottom part. It's an interesting situation. And they have their kind of different hairdo. They wear glasses, they don't wear glasses. And they have a blonde hair, they have a dark hair. All kinds of things happens. And everything makes sense. And that is the whole point, that things make sense in its own chord. And it doesn't have to be particularly written in the books as such, but there is a self-existing truth involved in the whole thing.
Rinpoche, if the Vajra Master commands the universe, the cosmos, if he's beyond karma, I don't understand how it could be burned.
If he does what with the karma?
If he's beyond karma, if he functions at the level of the 4 big karmas, and there's no hesitation, there's no reaction, how could he be burned?
If you decide to not relate with the karma?
No, if he's beyond karma,
yeah,
he's purely relating to the 4 karmas. No hesitation. How could the Vajra Master be burnt?
Well, it could be possible because the Vajra Master has also the debt to pay in the intensity of his compassion. That the Vajra Master has to relate with his world. There's possibilities that the Vajra Master could be cut down by some extraordinary force, that he doesn't have his reference point, his world around him anymore. That the Vajra Master doesn't have his ornaments, he doesn't have his coats and ties anymore, or expensive cufflinks. That the Vajra Master is cut down. He existed because he feels free from karma by relative reference to his world. And from this point, you could say that nobody is free from karma actually. I mean, not even the enlightened Buddha, or even Vajradhara as Dharmakaya. are not free from karma, because he's called, he's known as Vajradhara, he's Dhammakaya, he is his debt to Sambhogakaya, and he has, the Sambhogakayas have his debt on Nirmanakayas. And so forth, that the world goes on that way. So that's why we keep the Buddhas busy working for us, rather than they could retire some heavenly realm, which can't be happening. And that's the karma that's happening. That the Buddhas are not going to retire from their Buddhahood into their Buddhahood. But they got to help us, they got to work with us. And that's their karma, and our karma at the same time. If they're not keeping up with our law and regulation, they are not so good Buddhas. I think that's one of the interesting differences between theistic and non-theistic approach. That in a theistic approach you talk in terms of once you retire from this world, you'll be in heaven. You lost all your debt, you don't have anything to do with the world. You could be happy ever after. And you have no duties. But in a non-theistic tradition, even if you attain a state of liberation, openness, you still have a debt. Because the rest of your brothers and sisters in the world are in trouble. So you got to come back. Otherwise you can't hang out there. One never hangs out there anyway.
Rinpoche, in one of our discussion groups, our leader was telling us something that Vajra Hell is a place where you never come back. It's a kind of eternal damnation. Can you speak on that at all, please?
Never come back because you have created yourself. Therefore you never come back, never come out of that. Because you have decided to stay there. That's simply one of the basic points.
Rinpoche, from what you say, it sounds like a Vajra master is a magician. Would you say that?
Not quite. You could say, in some sense, a Vajra master is a magician in the sense that Vajra master has access to the cosmic world. And can work with that. But not in the sense of a magician from the point of view of that earth could be turned into fire, fire could be turned into water, just like that. The Vajra master had to work with the actual functions of the universe at the same time. So he had some kind of dependency, or she has for that matter, some kind of dependency in the workings with the cosmos. And we could say that the cosmos contains lots of magic. And the Vajra master is not a particular magician, but because the Vajra master has some connection with the world and the happenings in the world of the magic already, so therefore he could be the supervisor for the magic, rather than him being a magician as such, particularly.
you may wish to refer this question to a later lecture because it brings in something else. 2 parts. First of all, this state of nakedness or rawness or openness, wouldn't it come about as a result of any practice, tantric or non-tantric, just as a result of shedding, of becoming groundless and shedding your ego? Like, just couldn't this state of rawness come from just Hinayana practice or just self-inquiry or just a Sufi practice or any other practice? Doesn't this tantric relationship with the world come about with many methods? And secondly, this energy of the tantric master, Buddhist tantric master, what is the connection with the Kundalini energy of the Hindu tantric master? That transmission.
In the first question, I think whether we like to regard it as labeled as Tantra or not, we are saying the same thing. And when somebody is inspired to work with the energies of the world, that somebody put lots of energy and relationship situation and experience around it, and you control the fire, you control the frying pan, and then finally you produce sunny side up. That is the magic, that's the tantric. From that point of view, it's a true tantric gesture. And in terms of Kundalini yoga and Buddhist yoga is concerned, that the Kundalini yoga seems to be based on idea of one-pointedness, based on this particularly. And the Buddhist tantric energy, the Vajra master is concerned, is nothing to do with the spiral experience or nothing to do with the one-pointedness particular at all. It's you have clusters of energies there, clusters of energies over there, and something happens all over the place, like the stars in the galaxy. And it is not one-pointedness, it is not one channel that we're particularly talking about. And it's all over the place. And it's disorganized from that point of view. Because the Kundalini approach is highly organized and centered in the one particular dimension, personality experience, which could have a cosmic application, of course. But at the same time, that application has to be like the sun shooting out rays. So we're still dependent on the sun, centralized point. In the case of the Buddhist approach of Tantra is concerned at Vajra Master's level, completely disorganized. There's no directions, no foundations, anything. It's all over the place. It's like a samurai who experienced that he meets 100 people in one big hall. Some of them his friends, some of them his enemies. That he killed his enemies. He makes friends with his friends. But there's no one big centralized situation involved. It's absolutely disorganized and scattered. There seem to be the differences from that point of view.
Rinpoche is describing or isn't describing the Vajra Master as someone who has lots of power, a way of describing him as one-pointed. That's my first question. And the second question is, sometimes you use the word power and sometimes you use the word energy. And I wonder if there is a distinction between the two and if you could comment on that.
Well, with the second question, the notion of power is same as energy at the same time. But when we talk about the power, we are talking about tuning into energy that does exist. When we talk about in terms of what was the other one? Vajra Master is concerned that it is connected with a sense of uniqueness and a sense of enormous, humorous attitude that the world doesn't have to be taken as a big threat, and that creates solemnness, lack of humor. That when the world is taken as humorously, interestingly already, there is a sense of power, a sense of energy happening. That the energy at this point is just a sense of exuberance. And the sense of power, when we talk about it, is the actual meeting with the points. Because you have developed a sense of exuberance, therefore you can relate with a sense of power at the same time. Like if you bought a new sports car, you have exuberance built up already, then you can use the power of your engine. You just go along with the exuberance and power together at the same time. It's a question of this and that have no conflict, which creates power energy at the same time, power dash energy at the same time.
So is power communication?
Is power.
Is power the sense of communication of energy?
I think so. Power comes first. Energy exists. Definitely. Good luck, madam.
Rinpoche, it seems historically that the master-disciple relationship in Tantric Buddhism has almost invariably involved a male as the master. And I wonder, the question is, why in the history of Tantric Buddhism, the wisdom of the faith was never able to overcome male domination within its own religious system.
I don't see any problems particularly there. And we are talking about female domination or male domination, whatever it is, that he or she is going to be Vajra master of some kind. But what we concern at this point in terms of Vajra master, I wouldn't say Vajra mistress particularly. That sounds entirely different, but she or he are Vajra masters. In fact, they are masters. They are the king or the queen, which is a better term. Vajra king or Vajra queen, if you like. We have a lot of linguistic problems there. What kind of mistress and so forth. The point of chauvinism is the problem. As far as Vajra master's level is concerned, there's no chauvinism at all. Just a purely functional, creative, and practical. Very simple, extremely simple. We don't have to bother about, whether we're being true democracy and too hip and racialistically free from ourselves. And we don't have to go through those trips. And we just get the teachings straight from lion's mouth rather than horse's mouth. And we just do those, practice those. And we don't have to talk about whether we're being fair for the public, whether we're fair for the black, fair for the white, fair for the female, fair for the male. I don't think those questions actually come up at all, because we are talking about a basic human situation, fundamentally speaking. We are talking about a fundamental openness. And from that point of view, if you lose the sense of chauvinism, that's the only way to handle the whole thing, rather than starting from all over the corners. We just cut down the reference point to the corners. Like so.
You once called Don Juan's approach, I believe, Tantric Hinayana. And I was wondering if the reason that you called it that was not so much because of the fact that Don Juan used a lot of drugs, but more because of the panic that he continually used with Carlos Castaneda.
I think that's the point, is that the level of morality is very powerful in Don Juan's approach. There's constant reference to so much good and bad. This is good, therefore that's bad. There's a lot of reference point and a sense of failure and gain. And when we talk about the craziness, in tantric level, crazy wisdom level, we are not talking about that whether good is good or bad is bad, but how we could dissolve the sharp edges of goodness and badness into non-existence of at all. That's simply the whole point, that otherwise you can't be really crazy. You could become goodly crazy or badly crazy, and you could put into jail, you could be regarded as winning the first award, and a fantastic poet or fantastic fighter, because you've been so crazy and trying to win your proposal, whatever. So when we talk about in terms of the final and fantastic artist, genius in this level, tantric level, we are talking about somebody who actually dissolved the boundaries of goodness, bad, perfection, and chaos completely. So there's no room for anything else. That person has produced a masterpiece at the same time.
Rinpoche, what would you say the significant characteristics would be for tantric students?
Panicking.
With what point of reference? You know, what guidelines? We all, you know,
We don't
freaking
talk
out.
about
You know, I'm not talking about freaking out.
No, just panic.
Well, who isn't doing that though?
What?
Who isn't panicking?
What about?
Who isn't panicking?
Well,
I mean, we're all here, so that, you know, we're panicking.
I don't think so.
You know.
Some people are very satisfied here, and some people are just about to panic, and some people are actually highly panicking. There's a lot of reference here. We can't put everybody in the same boat.
What do you mean by satisfied, actually?
What do you mean by satisfied?
Like sometimes, like I feel very
Did I
satisfied.
say
Sometimes I'm
satisfied?
panicking. I can never make my mind up whether I'm where I am at it. So, if you look at me, I get very, freaking out. I'm getting the cold shoulder, or I'm getting this or that.
Well, we have the right arm, then we have the left arm. We find ourselves, we have hands, left hand and right hand, and we go back and forth and back. And so the day continues.
Yeah, I know. Well, I feel good right now, so my panicking,
This evening you spoke about, I believe the Tantric master didn't have like magical powers. In reading the autobiography or the biography of Milarepa, like he had a lot of powers, and I'm confused. Like you say that, like last year at the Tantric Christmas seminar and stuff, you said that everyone could have those powers, but to forget about them, they weren't necessary. I'm confused. Like it's sometimes a master can control things, other times he doesn't do it. Are you saying that that the Tantric master has no power to do this, or he just doesn't indulge in it?
The only thing I can say is, please don't panic.
That's impossible.
But keep yourself panicking.
Rinpoche, we go through life and we meet so many teachers, or not, individually maybe not. We meet a lot of teachers, but individually we may not meet for ourselves a lot, maybe just one or two or so on. I'd like to know how the communication, or how the beginning of each I don't know what the word is. Encounter? No. Of each relationship of teacher and student. How, if any way, in particular, is that begun? Does a student search out a teacher? Does a teacher recognize a student? Do they just happen to be at the same place at the same time?
I think it's a mutual. Mutual, definitely, obviously. And that particular meeting between the teacher and student doesn't have to become perfect, particularly. Let me discuss that. I think that applies to every one of you. This point here, including yourself, is that the teacher doesn't have to be particularly open to you because you are unknown person just walked off the street, and teacher appreciate obviously that you are interested in your casual dropping into your apartment or your office and decided to just walk in, that's fine. And the student is concerned that expect a lot of possibilities and ideas, and the student maybe have prepared some kind of homework as to what the student is going to say to the teacher, and quite possibly if the student, supposedly so-called smart, have little notebooks of categories of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions that I'm going to ask my teacher when I meet him, and find out whether he is the right teacher or not. And if I find he is right teacher, then you have another category of questions to be asked. First is testing the person. The second stage is If he's a good woman already, then you would like to get into more. All kinds of problems that are involved with that. A kind of interviewing person, that point. But the point is that a student role is concerned, that a student doesn't have to appear to be dressed up in a suit, or student doesn't have to be a good student. When the student introduces herself or himself to the teacher, the student can open themselves to the extreme, if you like. Shit on teacher's rug and vomit on teacher's rug. And be polite. At the same time, whatever you have, it's always possible. And that is the best interview that such teacher would have of such a good student. And it doesn't have to pull yourself up and try to be good, particularly at all. Ladies and gentlemen, maybe we should close down this point.